Shifting mindset is a challenging thing, and it takes time, right? It's not going to happen in one conversation. You have to meet people where they're at, and you have to change their experience directly to help them see the value in what it is you're asking of them.
Take a risk, right? Hire the person that doesn't look like you, doesn't sound like you're maybe a little unsure of, but maybe checks most of the boxes, or even 30% of the boxes. Take a risk. And also make space for women in the room. Ask them to contribute to the content. Ask them to speak up. Encourage their involvement. Advocate for them. We need that, right? On both sides of the coin, whether you're a man or a woman in a leadership role.
Hi, welcome to the Change Agent Podcast. I'm Nathan Loznoski. I'm Concurrency CTO, and I'll be your host today. On this program, we talk about change agents that are transforming the world in which they work, using technology, looking at their businesses, thinking about new ways to work. We've had some really awesome guests on this program. We've talked about data, we've talked about product management and development, we've talked about the transformation of work through the pandemic. We had some really interesting conversations about people whose businesses fell apart and they had to build it back up again. Talked about the transformation of healthcare and the way people bring new market, even armored cars and technology. And this conversation today is going to be no different. It's a fantastic guest, really interesting topic, and it's going to be a great highlight for people who are really looking to build a career in product management in IT, and especially exploring the way in which these careers start to evolve. So I'd like to welcome my guest today. My guest today is going to be Amy Weber. Amy is the IT leader of the sales and marketing organization for Rockwell Automation. She is an excellent change agent. She's had a diverse career throughout various companies, led product management for many parts of those organizations. She's also an excellent leader in the way that she brings about the transformation of her team toward common goals, as well as engaging people within businesses. So just wonderful opportunity for us to welcome Amy Weber to the show today. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Nate. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. Amy, tell us a little bit about what it means to be an IT leader for sales and marketing organization at Rockwell. Like, what does that mean?
Well, my role, my current role at Rockwell Automation is a jack of all trades, which I've found regardless of the company I've worked for, I oftentimes end up in that problem-solving seat to help meet various needs. But in particular, I'm a relationship manager, setting up those relationships with our key business leaders and executives, as well as a people leader, developing the teams that deliver on the mission vision for various arms of our global sales and marketing arm at Rockwell.
Awesome. Well, we came to know each other through the way that you were engaged as a product manager, both at Rockwell and at your previous employers. And I'd love to have you just expound on what that even means. Like, what, for a person who hasn't had much exposure to product management and what it is and how to do it well, just give us a little bit of a breakdown of what that is and how a company should look at it.
Sure. I think product management is one of the most critical roles within the team. As the leader of a team and initiative, you're the voice, right? You're the advocate for what it is you're asking of the team. You're also the conduit to the business, understanding their top priorities, bringing that big picture vision and some of the strategies around how you get to that future state and leveraging and partnering with the experts on your team. I loved being a product manager. I felt like it was a natural role for me. I wouldn't say I had the background or the training necessarily. I kind of grew up in the project assistant, project manager, do everything, get it done kind of approach to my career, and product management was a natural thing for me.
So when you think about the two sides of that, one side being working with the customer, whether it's an external customer or an internal customer, and the other side being the people building the product, the developers, the IT folks, help me to understand, maybe starting on the end customer side. What works when partnering with them, and maybe what doesn't work when partnering with them?
Sure. What doesn't work, right, is that old way of working of I'm the IT expert. I know the answer to your problem. I think you really have to take a different step forward when you're looking to solve with digital the problems of real users. And that's internal and external. You need to get to know who they are, what they do, what their current experience is, and then how do you bridge the gap to improve upon it and make it easy. Technology should be seamless, right? But oftentimes, the way it's built and delivered, it's anything but seamless. It doesn't necessarily connect in an intuitive way to the way we intend our users to work because we're not thinking about or understanding what it is they do and how they look at the world. So I think that's a key starting point at the beginning for sure. To help articulate that vision, you need to know who your users are and what their key pain points are, right? And you solve for them. And help your engineers understand that point of view as well.
Yeah. So when you think about that end user and their point of view, how do you delineate between maybe the short-term things that they want, the short-term pains that they're having, and maybe the thing they're not saying, the long-term desire that if you were to accomplish that, maybe these little pains wouldn't matter because you maybe jumped over that problem. Like how do you start to like break that down and get the information you need to be able to effectively engage them?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's taking the solutioning hat off, right? Oftentimes the conversations are about that widget you want. I think if only I had this easy button would make it all work better for me. Well, tell me about what it is you're doing. Tell me about the first 10 things you do and how it leads into that action. And understanding truly the ways in which people work, their point of view, and having the empathy that you can bring back and solve differently. Not just, incrementally approaching it with, here's the solution, I have the answer. Assume you don't have the answer. Ask open-ended questions. Explore. Think aspirationally, and then put together a picture that helps paint what you understood from the group you worked with, right? And how you see opportunity to solve differently what it is they do day in and day out. I think it changes the conversation. It changes their belief in what's possible, and it builds integrity, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's a huge point. When you think about that in the context of like, as you were saying that, I was thinking about how I've known some professionals or companies where when they hire a person in technology, they maybe like spend a week like on the assembly line or shipping products and putting things in boxes, or kind of walking the day in the other person's shoes sort of thing. What are the practical ways you do that in your role to sort of put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're serving and understand where they're coming at this problem from their perspective? What are some of the tools of the trade there?
Sure, absolutely. And I think, what we're talking about here is, I like to refer to it as systems thinking, looking at the whole, not just the pinpoint solution or pain point, but the whole in the context that brings. And how we've approached that in my previous company, Northwestern Mutual, and my current company, Rockwell Automation, is really, empathy interviews. There are measures that you can use to assess relative importance across the journey. So really leveraging that experience, discipline, and background, and then being consistent in the open-ended questions you ask that are measuring, loyalty, satisfaction, experience, albeit those are softer measures, highly important in how you solve and understand the needs of your users and whether or not you're hitting the mark. So yeah, starting with those open-ended conversations, much like this one, exploring something, interviewing with an open mind, and then going back and capturing what the themes are and understanding the opportunities that could come from that, using those design thinking methodologies, right?
You said something there that we sometimes also say when we're talking with customers about the same subject, this empathy interview. And I don't know if most people know what that means. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what exactly is an empathy interview? Because empathy is such a popular subject right now in a lot of domains, but I don't know if that's something that people totally get. So could you kind of break that down for us?
Sure. And I'm not I am an academic, but I'm sure there'll be people listening to this that think maybe I'm not explaining it to the crisp letter of the law, but empathy interview really is going into a conversation with a subject area to explore, right? And asking more open-ended questions that are not leading people to the answers you're looking for, but giving you an opportunity to understand and dig into what they have to share with you. You let the conversation evolve on its own. You don't have a scripted set of questions to ask and you ask every single one of them. Rather, it evolves based on these open-ended, tell me what it is you do with said technology. How does that fit in your day? Are there things that you struggle with? How often do you use it? And let the conversation evolve on its own. And then you tailor the next set of questions based on where that person is taking you.
Man, you just dropped a huge point there. Is this idea that you're asking questions not to just lead them to the answer. You're trying to seek the answer. You're asking questions to learn, not just get prepared to be able to give them your response. That's just a big differentiation.
Yeah. Listening, right?
Yeah,
listening.
Actually listening.
Yeah. And being prepared to learn from that person. That's what it's really about.
Oh, that's huge. When you think about the alignment between systems thinking and your then builder community, the people actually building the product behind the scenes, how do you connect what you're learning there and maybe in some cases get them off the preconceived notion of what they're going to engineer to what the customer is asking for? Sometimes that's probably harder or not so hard depending upon the situation, right?
Sure, absolutely. And I think it's a critical piece of the puzzle, right? Engineers like to solve problems and to work within, the technology space they work in. And sometimes they prefer to just kind of do that in their own little corner, leave them alone. You got to pull them out of that corner. You got to get them exposed to the users in some cases. Yes, we certainly go through reports and can review the outcomes of the empathy interviews and the research work that our teams do. But I found it more powerful to take the opportunity to pull some of my engineers into the front line and to go out with us when we did some explorative work within our field, right? And let them be a part of, to witness the interviews, to witness the conversation, and to therefore see and feel what those that we're talking to are seeing and feeling. Not everyone has that opportunity, but technology being what it is today, you can record it, you can pull pieces out to share and expose more experience. But I think getting in front of your users, whether you're an engineer, an analyst, a product lead, it's an important thing to do.
How do you put people in the right mindset as you're creating a team to do this? Because it's not just you, right? You have you work with a team, you have leadership, you have the relationship with the people you're working with. How do you get the mindset to the right space? Like, are there tools you use to be able to help them to enter into the conversation in a non-defensive way, in a way where they're seeking information rather than seeking to, make a statement? How do you get them ready for that?
Sure. There's two pieces there for me. I'm a very immersive leader. I also have very high expectations of myself and those that work for me. So, right, getting in to the work with my team and talking through what's the vision, what's the why behind it, and bringing real life examples forward. We have those conversations consistently throughout the quarter, right? And some of those are ad hoc, but make a point to have a cadence to where you're continuing to bring back the big picture view, the vision, what have we learned? And not just dictating it to the room, to the team, but making it a conversation. What do you see? What have we learned? Share with me your experience. What does it mean to where we go next? One of the things I did too, in line with that, is my team of engineers, when we were rebuilding the Internet of Things for our distributed field force, they didn't believe in the solution we had selected. Okay, great. I hear the rumblings. Everyone's afraid to come tell me. Tell me. I want to hear it. But more than that, let's take the discipline to do the evaluation and set the stage with the options. What are the pros and cons? Why do you feel this way about the solution we picked versus another? Which one is the right one? And you stand behind the recommendation, and we'll go from there. That lesson gave my team the understanding that, hey, I'm not just going to sway in the wind, right? I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm also going to take your point of view and put in motion the best decision we can based on what we as a team know. And we switched solutions for the front end of that technology experience based on the work that team did.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really fascinating and excellent, just from the standpoint of being open to change, right? A lot of people, once they've made a decision, it's really hard to back away from that. Consider the existing decision as sunk cost, and then be able to reevaluate and change. But the way you did it isn't just reactive. It's a very objective way to cause people to take stands, get objective data from that stand, and then gain alignment across that team toward wherever direction you go. That was really interesting.
And it gives them a voice. That's what we need. We're no longer command and control, right? We want the power of the knowledge worker. We want their expertise to help inform the decisions we're making to achieve outcomes. Mm-hmm. You need to position them to believe you're going to listen, right? And show them that you'll listen and take action based on the best outcomes provided.
Good point. How do you use systems thinking in some of the approaches that you're talking about? Once a decision has been made, you're somewhat down the road, you're starting to release capabilities back to the field, who's the customer. And when you're taking feedback now iteratively, like on a journey, you're giving a little bit, you're taking feedback, you're giving a little bit, you're taking feedback. Like, help me with that part of the product management story, because you're like past the original, like, tell me how you feel stage, and now you're kind of in the, I'm giving you something, I need to know if it works or not stage.
Right. And I think about that in two ways. I think about it from how does the team work from a systems thinking approach, right? As well as how is the technology working? I think you have to continue to prioritize where you're putting effort. So we have an enhancement to make in something we recently released. Okay, what's that effort complexity? What's the value proposition to that? And what's the value proposition to the next thing we're building? And, what's the team's perspective on ability to do one or both of those things in the next time frame? How can we break it down and ensure that we're addressing major pain points with new releases, but also continuing on the path to progress towards that future state we're looking for? So, I think it's about priority, breaking it down into incremental value that you can deliver quickly, and getting the input from your team. When thinking about systems thinking on the structure of the team, which was a constant conversation with my Internet of Things team, really, we had that front end continuing to do discovery work, right? Based on, we're not just building this huge intranet, we're building component pieces of it, starting with the landing page, moving into spaces of common themes. We had to be out doing the discovery work in those various collections while we had pieces being built. Our team understanding how that system worked and how they handed work off to one another, but yet had continuity of conversation to continue to share learnings, was an important piece of what made us high performing.
Got it. Do you create essentially like communities that are sharing information with each other, and sort of like initial community that's getting the first fruits of their labor, but then also have a way to provide that kind of consistent feedback via tool? Or is it always an interaction and sort of personal interaction, or is there other tools that you use to be able to gather that? Like, kind of help me with like other pieces of that.
Right. So much of today's technology experiences are about being in context, right? We want to continue the conversation, but that conversation doesn't mean that we're sitting one-on-one with people. We don't have the time or the bandwidth to do that while still continuing to be productive. So build it into the way you're delivering your technology experience. What are the opportunities to do that? There are a number of metrics platforms today that can capture interactive use of a technology, but it also means on the back end, you have to have resources or a team of people looking at that, analyzing it, understanding how it's helping you achieve your outcomes. In turn, the way that we continue to think about the conversation with our users really was in relation to bigger picture initiatives that were capturing those ongoing metrics that we identified at our baseline and measured progression against to keep that vital input supporting the work and the decisions we were making.
Okay. That's awesome. When you think about getting your own team to pivot from one way of engaging to another way of engaging, how do you do that? So do you have to do is it an internal education? Is it a training program? Is it just mindset? Like you sit them down and say, like, we have to change our mindset here. We have a reputation in this way of engaging. We need to change it to this way. Like, what are the ways that you've had to help shift that mindset?
Sure. I think shifting mindset is a challenging thing, and it takes time, right? It's not going to happen in one conversation. You have to meet people where they're at, and you have to change their experience directly to help them see the value in what it is you're asking of them. So that's a constant conversation. I had that with my support team on the internet of all things. They just wanted to keep filling coffee cups and shoving them out the door. I had to talk with them about the big picture vision and what different looks like, but then actually show them and sometimes get on the front lines with them, right, to work through it and give them the tools. So training, conversation, collaboration, real world examples, and exposure over a period of time. That's very real at Rockwell today. They're transforming into Agile. They're about 3 years in. I would say, they're on a rocky road right now, but how do you give them the tools? You have to be on the ground with them. You have to show them the difference and help them, be a conduit for them to understand, make them feel comfortable that they come to you with questions as opposed to feel like they're doing something wrong or that you're looking at them critically and negatively, right? That's how you make change.
One thing that's kind of connected to that, you mentioned a lot about changing the way you interact with someone, right? To gather information, to have the right mindset in the way you talk to them. Sometimes I'm hearing it's not just that, it's also the concern about the follow through. Like they've been engaged, they've said stuff before. They'd be like, yeah, you're the fourth person I've told this story to in the last 6 months, and nothing happens from it. And how do you convince them, and maybe it's just proof is in the pudding, but how do you convince them that there's going to be a clear outcome? They're going to truly get difference, change is going to happen as a result of this conversation. Like, is there something beyond just doing it that you have to do?
I think different people are in different camps. I mean, you have folks that will be inspired by the vision and the belief of the person that's talking to how this is possible. But then you'll have people who are in camps that, they're going to hang back and they're going to wait to see the outcomes. So you have to be prepared to show quick wins in addition to like knowing the North Star you're going after, being able to show how it's possible and say it simply. That's vision, right? Garner that alignment, show that it's possible, and then you really have to show it. You have to do some delivery, something that can show value to get the rest of the group along. I think that's nothing new to any of us. Being able to deliver results is an important piece of any business. It's just how you go about doing it and continue to tell the story and make an impact and bring advocates along with you.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Thank you. Maybe to pivot here to a connected part of the conversation that I think is so important and so interesting, I would love to hear your perspective on, is the way in which you as a leader have accentuated both the impact in the business and done so both as a woman in IT. And I'm super interested in this because I have 6 daughters. I would love for them to have technology careers. Some of them are really interested in it. Some of them at the moment don't want anything to do with it. But I would love to just understand from your perspective how you have navigated becoming a really successful, engaging person in your organization and how you've navigated the different challenges that you may have run into as a woman in this particular career. Can you maybe
Sure.
expound on that a little bit and kind of help us give me some advice?
Yeah, thank you for asking. That's a great question. I think I think you have to give it your all, no matter what it is you're doing. I'd like to say, it doesn't matter that you're a woman. It does. I think we all we know that now, right? We see and hear the hardships that women have in the workforce, but don't let that hold you back. Know who you are. Be authentic. And do not let the pushback and the challenges take away from who you are. Continue to do the hard work. Bring other people along. Show them how to do what you do. Build advocacy and continue to grow and learn, right? I think there will always be people that push back on you, listen to the feedback, but not all feedback is feedback worth applying, right? Take it, think about it, put it on a shelf, but continue to think about those things that you can do to contribute to the company, to the value proposition. That's really how I've always approached any of my work. And I'll tell you, not everybody loves me. It's a bit of a love-hate, I think, sometimes, because I am strong and I am loud. And I guess over time I learned I had to be heard, right? In the collection of men around me in leadership positions, especially in IT. So just be conscious of the impacts you have. Learn from how you can adjust your style without negatively affecting your authenticity and what it is you bring to the table, and never give up.
So Amy, just to follow up on that last question, tell me a little bit about how we can encourage businesses to better engage women in IT. How can we grow women in IT within every business and help them to see not just the value, but like to actually make it happen?
Yeah. Two things I would say. A, take some chances. Take a risk, right? Hire the person that doesn't look like you, doesn't sound like you, you're maybe a little unsure of, but maybe checks most of the boxes, or even 30% of the boxes. Take a risk. And also make space. Make space for women in the room. Ask them to contribute to the content. Ask them to speak up. Encourage their involvement. Advocate for them. We need that, right? On both sides of the coin, whether you're a man or a woman in a leadership role or otherwise, make sure you're bringing the next guy along with you and encouraging the women in the room to not just have a seat, but make space for them at the table to be a part of the conversation and encourage their voice, even if it's more passionate or emotional than yours is, right? Don't be quick to judge. Make some room and learn from them.
Encourage them to be leaders, right?
Encourage them to be leaders. Encourage them to be part of the dialogue, and take some risks to bring people you maybe wouldn't normally hire along. Never know what you'll get from it.
Awesome. Thank you for addressing that.
Sure.
All right. Our last question. Amy, I would love to learn about who's inspired you. Who's helped you to be the change agent that you are, and to have the kind of engagement and perspective and personality and way of engaging. Tell me about who those inspirations are for you.
Sure. I've been thinking about this question since we first talked about it. I think there's so many people that have inspired me over the course of my career and even my life. I mean, we all are kind of patchwork quilts of our own experiences. And I mean, certainly my dad, who was like a saving grace to my family. I don't know where I'd be without him, which is an easy one for me. But some of the people in my career, I mean, working a little bit backwards, but Christy Litchford was my VP in digital workplace. I think as a female leader, she's amazing. She has an open door for pretty much anyone. She doesn't wear her hierarchy on her shirt, so to speak, right? Everyone has an equal voice. Everyone's a part of the leadership team and is contributing to the system. And there are other leaders too that over the years I think have made a big impact by giving me opportunities. One of my first jobs out of college, I worked for a small company. Chris Rebholz hired me, and he and I maybe don't see eye to eye. He's a total salesperson, which I am not a salesperson, but he was just like super, had a ton of conviction and vision and passion and excitement and energy. So I think recognizing those characteristics, integrity, authenticity, along with honesty, even when it's hard. You don't always have to be nice, right? But you do have to be honest and authentic. And then having some fun, making it exciting and inspiring. I think those are the keys to the kingdom for me. I want to solve complicated problems, and I want to work for people who give me the latitude to do it, not micromanage me, right? Don't get in the way. Let the process work for itself.
I love what you said there about not wearing their title or their hierarchy on their sleeve.
Yeah.
That was a huge point, and probably a good lesson to all leaders that we do that.
Right. Everyone has value, regardless of the level that they're at. You need them as much as they need you. And I think you should encourage people to be comfortable to talk to you, regardless of what role you're in. Be an open door, be available. Maybe not every second of every day, but make time for people, make space for them.
Amen. Thank you. Well, thank you again for being part of the show. I really, really appreciate it. And just your perspective is so helpful, both from the perspective of product management, but then even more so of how we encourage everyone to have a voice. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Nate.
Awesome. And we will see you next time on the Change Agent Podcast.